I don't. Do I need any background music? Alexa, play Deutschland by Ramstein.
Here's Deutschland by Rammstein on Amazon Music.
Alexa, stop. Alexa, play Red Alert 3.
Here's Red Alert 3 theme, Soviet March by James Hannigan on Amazon Music.
I'm just going to play the most obnoxious music. I like it. It's not obnoxious to me. I just think this is amazing. I don't know why. It's from a computer game. Okay, Alexa, stop. Because if yeah, they'll take down my video for copyright shenanigans. So this is as much special effects as I can do. Excuse me, my nose itches. I have to. God. So this disgusting old man. Okay, what's been up? My health has been up and down. It's almost Christmas, solstice, whatever. Um, I'm still writing those science fiction stories. The one in Gaza, all expense paid, is done. He escapes from Area 50. Alexa, where is Area 51?
The United States Air Force facility, commonly known as Area 51, is a highly classified remote detachment of Edwards Air Force Base within the Nevada Test and Training Range.
Alexa, what is Las Vegas?
Las Vegas is a famous city in the United States known for its casinos, entertainment, and nightlife. It is called the entertainment capital of the world and is a major North American resort city.
Alexa, is there extraterrestrial life?
There is no concrete evidence of extraterrestrial life, but scientists continue to search for signs of life beyond Earth through various methods. The vastness of the universe and the potential for life on other planets make it a topic of great interest and speculation.
Uh, Alexa, do aliens from other planets visit our Earth?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, there has never been a documented and proven instance of an alien from outer space visiting the Earth.
Oh, you're no fun. You're supposed to launch into some sort of computer conspiracy sort of. You ever watch the Y Files out there? I love the Y Files. I need a heckle. Well, this is my heckle fish. My heckle fish is just Alexa. Oh God, I get you. I'm sorry. You're gonna sit here and watch me. All right. So, anyways, he escapes from. I keep wanting to say Area 54, but it's Alexa. What is Studio 54?
Studio 54 is a Broadway theater and a former nightclub in Midtown Manhattan, New York City.
Okay. So, anyways, he escapes from Gaza, disguised as a little old Jewish lady. They find out that he's not a little old Jewish lady. Then they find out he's an alien, and they contact the Americans, and there, and would it be the Americans or yeah, it's some. I guess the Americans, since we live in a unipolar world now, and we're about to go into another Cold War or something like it. We'd be in charge of extraterrestrials, I guess. Take him back to Area 51, start performing experiments on him, and they accidentally tap into a homing beacon that's placed in all intergalactic travelers. It's required. His was malfunctioning, though, so even though he was in distress, he got stuck here. But when they tried to do a spinal tap, they accidentally hit it. It signaled a beacon. They focused in on him and zap, which almost killed him or left him paralyzed. But once he got out of the hospital and sued his old boss, who'd gone on the lam, disappeared because he for tax evasion and for it's pretty obvious that he dropped him in Gaza on purpose, which could have not just messed up his life, but you know violated a number of treaties, and oh my God, if the Earthlings actually found out, yeah, but they're always doing things like that. That's why they've got people on Earth. Anyways, I'm fleshing out the details. So, anyways, he gets eventually after he's let out of the hospital and the mental ward for PTSD, and I guess they never do find his boss. He just maybe he owed money to the mob or narco internet intergalactic narco terrorists, crypto who knows? He owed money, so he's disappeared. But I guess he had some funds. He had the business. All his stuff was liquidated, and the law, maybe you don't know. It's a year later, 5 years later, an indefinite period of time. Who knows in space? With time travel and everything. He's out of the hospital. He's sued. He's taken over the Milky Way Travel Agency or whatever on the space station, and he's decided he wants to do something with it. He wants to go in a different direction. Instead of sending people there to gamble, he figures people don't really realize it's been kept hushed up because it's embarrassing. Nobody wants to go to a planet that's filled with war and civil war and distress and mayhem, or do they? And he realizes, when talking to people, that there might be a loophole. He might be able, in some gray area, to not just send people on guided tours of like Monte Carlo, Monaco, and gambling casinos and the nice beaches in the south of France and Riviera, or Hawaii, or Ibiza, or many of the other. I guess people like to go skiing on Earth, but they try to keep it quiet. That there's, it's a pretty warlike place, and it always has been. People used to go there illegally, but it's like absinthe, I guess. They've. It's a gray area, like medical marijuana or something like that. It was quietly legalized and heavily regulated, but he thinks he can kind of skirt the laws and send people to Earth to do what he did, only with weapons. Even say send people to the Battle of Stalingrad or Ukraine or Bosnia during the '90s. I don't know why anybody want to go there, but aliens like to do weird things. Or visit Hitler. I mean, let's not get too controversial about how sadistic these aliens might want to be. Visit Caligula back in Rome, the Marquis de Sade, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the American Civil War. There are like a million different bloody conflicts that could be engaged in. You could go on a tour to watch the Americans drop the first atomic bomb, or if he doesn't get his hands on a time dilator, what can he do? He could just send them to. They're all even if he's stuck in like this time, whatever this time is. There are plenty of the coming war in Taiwan. There are plenty of things always going on in the world. Well, El Salvador's all folded up, but there are plenty of violent places on the earth. Gang wars. Even if it's like the recent past, you can send people to the George Floyd riots or the Rodney King riots, or back to 1966 to the Watts riots. Whatever sort of mayhem. 1968 in Paris when where the French were revolting. The French were all all these, because people like to go visit violent things, or just go to the Louvre. I mean, because people go to the Louvre now, but I mean, he thinks this is. Why didn't anybody else think of this? The planet is so full of history, and even if he can't get a license for time travel, or even if he can't get a time dilator on the sly, even if he's stuck sending people now or in the recent, maybe in the near future, whatever. Time's a funny thing because, I mean, this is what I think. If you're going to be traveling in space over these long spaces with the speed of light and everything, I think you'd have to be able to travel in time in order to go faster than the speed of light. You'd probably end up twisting time around anyway. So he's right now in my story. He's trying to, does he need a press agent? Who is he going to get to do his advertising? Where should he just do hand out leaflet? I mean, just it's kind of an anachronistic thing. Should he just hand out leaflets around the space station because there are tourists mulling around there? Should he do it on the sly? Because he doesn't want to attract too much attention. So those are my ideas for my science fiction story. I don't think he wants to go back to Gaza, but I think concentrating on Gaza as a story, if I mean, let's hypothetically say that this story ever takes off, we don't want to make the message, um, although killing 20,000 people is terrible. I was just watching something about um, Syria. There's a civil war in Syria that's killed 500,000 people. God only knows how many people have died in the Ukraine. This is not to diminish what's going on there. It's just I was just thinking though, the troubles in Northern Ireland are basically over. They've well, I mean, not completely over, but they've managed to reduce the level of violence down to almost zero. And wouldn't that be nice if they could do that in Israel and Palestine? Because I don't. It just seems so medieval that people would Protestants and Catholics would still be, but it's not. See, that's the thing. They say it's religion, but that's not really it. It goes back to it was the Pope that gave the British. Um, this is before there were even any British. They gave the Anglo Normans Ireland back before the Protestant Reformation. So there were no Catholics and Protestants when, the Normans were French. So when the Normans ruled Britain, they also conquered. History is so complicated. It really, like France, where my family's from, um, one side of the family's from. It started out Celtic, not us. Then the Italians, the Romans invaded, so it was like Celtic and Roman, and it was Roman for many years, what 500, and then the Germans invaded. They're my people, the Franks. Those were my ancestors. That's where France gets its name, from the Franks. So the French aren't like into racial superiority; they're more into cultural superiority because they're kind of and God bless them for it, and I am too, I suppose. Um, the Germans are obsessed with pure blood, and I don't think that the French nationality is really what you could say pure blooded. If there is, I don't even. My personal opinion is there's no such thing as pure blood, and I quite frankly would feel kind of creepy if I did have pure blood. Means you're inbred and you're probably blue or have web feet and are mentally, you're not allowed to say retarded anymore. But that's what happens when you inbreed. Was it the Habsburgs that had that jaw? And this one guy that opened his brain up and it was just like sort of a pus. It wasn't even a brain. It was just a large mass of pus. And he was supposed to rule over um, Europe, or the Habsburg ruled over a significant portion of like Spain and Austria and everything like that. And his jaw was funny and his brain was just full of pus. So I think that's why I'm going to make this story. Um, it's not just because he was looking. My God, these people, the Israelis, then he finds out. Oh well, it's both sides. And then he finds out it's not just these two antagonistic tribes. It's the whole damn planet that's constantly. Well, look at France and Germany. I guess that's why I'm here in the United States, was because the part of the Alsace-Lorraine, going back to the French religious wars, which were even before the 30 Years' War or the 80 Years' War. And then there was the Franco-Prussian War, World War One, World War Two. It was we'd left by then, but it was an area that was hotly contested by the French and the Germans for years. They played ping pong with Alsace-Lorraine or the Moselle or Metz, and the people there spoke German. But if you look at them, they weren't exactly blonde-haired and blue-eyed. God, I'm sorry, my arm itches. And they were significantly shorter than the Dutch side of the family. When I visit family over in Holland, these people are, I don't want to say beasts. That's terrible to call people. They're not all blonde hair and blue eyes, but they're just the kids. I was maybe 5'11", and they're like 6'3", 6'4". 6'5", just giant people. I think that must be the French side keeps the height down a little bit. Maybe I don't know. My dad and I were about the same height. I guess you could say he was pure Dutch. His mom was from Overijssel, someplace called Almelo, and his dad was from it's a place that doesn't exist anymore outside Zutphen, someplace called Vorensveld. It doesn't even exist anymore. It's like where he was born is now a parking lot for some I don't know if it's a grocery store or like a what do they call this? Like a CVS, place where you drugstore, convenience store, something like that, or maybe a mini mall. I don't know, because for a while, I think it's going to go away from that now. The globalization thing, I think, is going to. God only knows, we could be going into World War III or a new dark age or something really weird, because society does tend to break down every 1,000, 2,000 years, something like that. There was the Dark Ages, which I guess Rome fell about 500, 600, and when they quote unquote the Dark Ages, and before that I think it was 1100 BC. There was some kind with the sea people. It's interesting. So, anyways, once he finds out the whole planet's made up of these crazy monkeys that are always fighting, it's not just these two antagonistic tribes in the Middle East. It's like the whole planet's made up of the Rwanda, Bosnia. The whole planet's just made up of people that hate each other. He gives an example. Look at Belgium. Well, they're not killing each other, but that's not even a country. It's like two ethnic groups that somehow accidentally ended up next door to each other. They can't stand each other, the French and the Dutch. But for some reason, France doesn't want the Walloons, and the Dutch don't want the Flems, or it's just kind of like an accidental country. You know what I mean? I mean, things like that happen. Kind of like New Jersey, an accident. So anyway, so he's thinking, well, don't give the Jews such a hard time, or the Palestinians, or the Arabs. It's just like they're all like that. Right? They're all animals. We're all animals, okay? So when you start calling some opposing ethnic group that you hate because you don't like their vicious behavior, just remember how vicious you are, okay? You can find vicious people in any ethnic or racial group. It's terrible to say this, but let's just give one example, okay? Leon Trotsky was an atheist, I guess. Bronsky was his name or whatever. He was supposed to be like the hero, like the good communist. When he was head of the Red Army, he probably killed more people than Hitler did. And you can say, but it was for a good cause. They all say that. There are no good causes. Americans slaughtered all the Indian slavery. You find some idea, religion or ideology that what did Nietzsche say? All great civilizations are based on cruelty. They're based on an aesthetics. It's like putting sadism on a pedestal. It's like I'm big me, little you, and in order for society to flourish, there's got to be a small elite just crushing everyone else. I don't know if I buy that, but the march of history lately has been to say we got to find some way to get out of this vicious circle, and hating each other and hating different classes, and we just I mean, even though we don't have official slavery anymore, we've gone into feudalism, capitalism, and so socialism really wasn't. Maybe it was too soon for it, but it's hard to say that improves society. I think the best civilizations have been like a form of democratic capitalism with sort of maybe a mixed economy with a welfare state and human rights. I don't know how stable those are, but those are the societies that have seemed to have done the best. I think the examples are Singapore, which is quasi authoritarian and is a very state directed form of capitalism, but doing very well, and it is very pro market, but has a significant state increment with the Provident Trust. A lot of almost everybody lives in public housing. The government owns 90% of the land, about 25% of the economies in a sovereign wealth fund. Norway and Scandinavian nations have a high quality of life and a lot of freedom, but heavily taxed and with a welfare state. And then there's Switzerland. Oh dear, what happened here? Okay, hopefully, well, I've been babbling for 20 minutes. Okay, so people won't see. Excuse me, I have to itch in a very embarrassing place, but you can't see it. Can I get in trouble for this? I'm just going to say I'm itching someplace I shouldn't be itching while I'm talking to you, and I'm not doing it. It's just I'm an old man and things. Oh God, I'm scratching all over. It's just disgusting. Sorry. My legs. That's what it is. I'll tell you what's really bothering me. I have lymphedema, and my legs are all swelled up, and the skin cracks. I don't have cellulitis. It's not so bad that it's gotten infected, but my legs swell up, the skin breaks, and I've got all these. Ugh, and the skin dries out, and it gets brittle, and it just itches. It just itches. Everything itches. But I did take a shower, so it's not because of filth. It's just I'm old, and maybe it's diabetes. I think they said a lot of it's diabetes. The skin, I've got like dry skin, and everything itches. My scalp itches, my eyebrows itch, everything itches. Okay, now here we're gonna go because it's been going on a long time. But why I originally wanted to post this video, I got a Hulu. I got to reconnect my Hulu to my Fire Stick. I completely forgot why it came up. But now I remember. So I'm going to make this quick because I got diverted again. Executive decisions, executive function. Alexa, what is executive function?
Executive function is a set of cognitive processes that enable behavior to be controlled cognitively, such as planning, memory, self-control, and initiating tasks.
Alexa, what is Wellbutrin?
According to First Databank, Wellbutrin SR is an antidepressant. It works by restoring the balance of dopamine and norepinephrine in the brain.
Okay, well, they worry that's why I'm always, if anybody watches these videos, if you ever wonder why I'm like wandering all over the place, I've got some kind of attention disorder. They used to just call it being scatterbrained. Everything's got to be a disease or a mental problem now. Maybe I just don't try hard enough. I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid. But they're hoping Wellbutrin might. 65 years old. They're still trying to find out what's wrong with me. All right. Anyways, here's what I was going to say. And remember, I'm kind of a fictional character. A lot of the lies I tell are not complete lies. They're based on exaggerations. And they're either things that have happened to me or stories that close friends have told me about their own lives or people they've known. So it's kind of like a composite, like the movie The Lord of War was based on true stories, but it wasn't one guy. It was like 5 guys. So it was a lie, but it wasn't. So here I go. I don't know whether this is a true story or not, but I worked for a guy. And he was from an affluent family, and they were well connected. But he had a temper. Boy, did he have a temper. And my job, basically, he didn't know it. He wanted legal advice because I was in law school. And he said he kept me around for that. But I think him, his brother, his family tolerated me for the reason that I try to calm him down. I was the guy. And he had every right to be angry. One of the employees, I was supposed to deal with him too, decided they were going to rip him off. He was nice. He gave him all these, accoutrements for his business to sell, well, buttons mostly. And then he wouldn't pay after he took him for free. He wouldn't pay, and so my employer got so mad that he decided he was either going to break his kneecaps or shoot him. And I go, look, why don't we? Because he had this book, and I was paging through it, and it was 1,001 Ways to Get Back at People Legally. He was a smart guy, but when he lost his temper, he turned into an idiot. He was a very smart guy. He was a freaking genius. when he was calm. When he lost it, his impulse control went, and he was just a mad beast. He really was. Like they say in Irish temper. I know that's a stereotype. This guy was a very bright guy. He even told me one time that he thought he was a psychopath, or was it a sociopath? And he was actually reading from a book. Really bright guy. He knew what was wrong. He just didn't seem to have a lot of empathy for anybody, whether it's a psychopath or sociopath, because he kind of had it rough. He had to learn to take care of himself. But he had a certain charm, and I don't think he was either of those, because when I got sick, he helped me. So I don't think he was. I don't really think he was either of those things. He was just, life had made him hard, and he was impulsive, but bright, very intelligent guy. That's the reason is he scared me. I didn't like his politics too much, and sometimes he could be abusive. But I think the reason why I liked him was because he had a certain, and they say psychopaths are like that. He had such a charm. He was such a charming guy. I liked being around him because he was smart, he was clever, he was funny, and it made me feel better that I had at least one friend who wasn't a complete fucking loser and a moron. He was a little. If he would have learned to control his temper, he could have been a really wealthy businessman, but he was always going off on people, going completely nuts and wanting to kill him like some sort of mafia person, which I always wondered about. Always looking at things to do to like Goodfellas, like almost to whack people. And my job was kind of to, no, don't kill him. He owes his wife back child support. Because he's saying, I met his ex-wife, and the kid's on welfare, and she's doing everything she can to get off welfare. She's doing everything right to turn her life around. And this worthless SOB comes and steals money from her and won't pay his child support. He had a car. He was living in his car. So I said, instead of killing him, why don't we just turn him over to Child Protective Services? He said, I don't like the government. I said, yeah, but as long as we got a government, why not use it for a good purpose? They'll take his car. He'll have no place to live. It might even kill him. She'll get money or maybe she'll get the car so that she can go to her job. She's not going to spend it on drugs or stay home and watch Oprah. She's really trying. Like you were saying, she spends time with the kid, doing his homework. She's trying so hard to be a mom and work, and she's doing it all. Not only is this guy not helping her, but he's a dog. He just shuffles into her life every once in a while, steals money from her purse, maybe gets a little violent. He was a no good Nick. This guy was a no good Nick, and my boss wanted to kill him. But we did. We called child services, or what is it? Alexa, what is the agency in the government that's in charge of collecting child support?
From Wikipedia.org. Child support enforcement in the United States at the federal level is the responsibility of the Administration for Children and Families in the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't know if you'd call it Child Protective Services or the Department of Don't Beat Your Wife or what. It's like maybe it is Child Protective Services. But I remember, was that Reagan who made it a lot harder to avoid paying alimony because he was like totally against welfare, and that kind of makes sense. I mean, it's if you married poorly, it's your responsibility to take care of your kids, not society. I mean, welfare is supposed to be a last resort. If you can work, you should work. Obviously, if you've abandoned your family, it's especially back then, it was very hard for women because they didn't make as much as men to be a wife and work. And so they went after these deadbeat dads. I was always for that. I knew a lot of I can remember this one guy. He owned this corner store. He was like saying, "My wife wants me to collect child support," and I wanted to say something, but I knew he kept something under the counter. I didn't want him to shoot me. I was gonna say, "You take care of your kids, man." And he's talking about how he wanted to leave his life and get an anonymous name and maybe move to Canada because I guess he had family up there that ran 7-Elevens up there. And I was thinking, what a bum. I mean, how could you, even if you hate your wife, I mean, you got kids, man. You brought kids into the world. There are a lot of scumbags in this world. There really are. There are a lot. And then, but to be fair, these things are complicated because it's like I always take the women's side, and I don't want to sound sexist with because that the whole incel thing. But I've met a couple women that they take advantage of the guys, and they just see them as a meal ticket, and they're kind of it's not always the guy's fault. It usually is, but not always. So, anyways, what we did was instead of killing him, we turned him over to Child Protective Services or whatever because he was behind in his alimony, and they arrested him and impounded his car, and that almost killed him. I mean, we did it. Actually, we did a good deed because it helped his ex-wife, who was doing everything right and working hard and trying to get off welfare. And my boss didn't like paying taxes for people on welfare, but he said, "You know what? It's that exception is the reason why I do pay taxes. She's really trying. She's trying to get her life around. She's not being a parasite. She's not taking drugs. She doesn't even drink. Doesn't smoke cigarettes. Just doing the right thing. I think she even goes to church on Sunday. And she's just trying. She's working, doing everything right. She just needs a little help. And eventually, I think she was going to nursing school or something. She'll turn her life around if this bum gets out of her life. Because every time she tries to climb her way up, this bum drags everybody around. He's like, some people are like that. They're just shit magnets. They drag everyone around them down because they can't stand it to see anyone do successfully, because then it reminds them of what a loser they are. And it's not like, oh, I can't win for trying. It's like they're not even trying. They're just like a suck. They want to do drugs. They don't really want to try. They resent anybody that does well. Some people try and they just can't get ahead. It's like I kind of feel sorry for them. It's like if as long as you get up and go to work every day, you deserve some kind of decent living. I guess the people you should really be down on are the people that could work and just decide they're going to scam the system. But how do you know? Don't look at me that way. Don't look at me. There's. I had problems. I look. You know what? I worked. I did. I worked. Did market research. I did all kinds of things. Tried to go to school. I was one of those people that really tried. I really, really was. But I got really, really sick. I ended up in the hospital. Maybe it was a mental hospital. So what? But life just got to be too much. So, and one of the problem was controlling emotions. I don't want to make excuses and say I turn into another person. But if you're bipolar or schizoaffective, sometimes when I get emotional and I lose it, I turn into a different person, a really ugly, mean. Because I lived in that sort of hostile environment. You develop a skin, a tough skin, a ruthless skin to be able to survive in the rough world. I mean, the world's a rough place. So sometimes when I'm attacked, I turn into this ugly, ugly, unthinking, really, I mean, just really bad. Maybe not by you, but I think this person is this demon who just is vicious and bigoted and angry and violent. And it's like I spend my whole life. Alexa, play Audible.
Getting your selection from Audible. Resuming peace is every step.
Which you enjoy.
Serenity now. Serenity now.
If you are free of worry.
Alexa, stop. So that's what I'm doing to try to control that little demon in me. That bad person I don't want to be is to like stop watching the news, don't hate anybody, and just calm down and try to be the good me and not the bad me. Not Charles Manson, but Jesus, baby Jesus. All right, okay. So, because we all have a yin and a yang. We all have a good person, and we also have a bad person fighting. And everybody has that good and bad in them, always constantly fighting to come out. So, anyways, this was my analogy. How much time? Okay, I was going. I had a friend, and he could be a real SOB, and he could be vicious. And sometimes the people that he went off on deserved it, like this guy that he wanted to kill. And it was my job to be Joe Biden, kind of hold him back, restrain him. Come on, you don't want to kill him. You don't want to start a bar fight, because if you do, it's going to be, they might, he says, well, I won't get caught. Well, guess what? I says, you are, and you're screaming and you're yelling in public, and it's not good for our business. People are going to think less of you. We're going to lose clients, and you could go to jail for the rest of your life for killing somebody. So let's. You, sometimes you got a friend who's just maybe most of the time they're all right. They're civilized. They got some good qualities, and they got some bad qualities. They can be a little mean. They can be really mean. And you're in a fight, and you realize that they're going to take on the whole room, and maybe they can beat the whole room, but they're going to fight dirty. And once the guy's down, and this, I had a boss like this. Once the guy was down, he wouldn't stop. He'd kick them till they're dead, or till their ribs are broken, or they were paralyzed. You know, he had this thing. He knew karate where he could hit you right here in the neck and collapse your windpipe, and you choke to death. It was like, I go, yeah, these people deserve it, but because I think he was Roman Catholic and I was like an agnostic, but I grew up in the Church of the Bethany Covenant. So I says, Rick, it's not Christian to not show mercy. Once somebody's down, you don't kick them, and you don't go after that. He liked to go after people's families, but you don't go after innocent people. I was so worried he was going to go after this guy's family, but he realized she hated him, and he didn't give a shit about her. And the best thing he could possibly do to get back at him was to give this information, and not only would he ruin his life, but he'd help her. And he acknowledged she was a pretty decent person. But okay, like with Hamas now, let's not be too. I mean, is Israel the worst nation in the world? Okay, you know what? They took that land. Let's say they did. What did we do? And I'm not saying any of this is right, but let's just say this. We came over here, and there was a whole race of people that were flourishing on their own level, that were living maybe not peacefully, but they've been living here for maybe tens of thousands of years in a very ecologically stable existence. And most of the wiping out we did was just our disease. We didn't actually overtly plan this, but like smallpox and influenza and all these filthy diseases that white Europeans have because they spent such a lot of time in close proximity to barnyard animals, agricultural animals, like sleeping with cows and everything. Yeah, sleeping with cows, that doesn't sound good. But I guess Native Americans didn't. They were hunter and gatherers, and like the animals they interacted with were game, so they weren't in close proximity. So since white Europeans were in such close proximity to all these animals, we got all their filthy diseases. I don't know where we got syphilis from. I don't even want to think about that. It kind of went back and forth, but our diseases wiped out the Native Americans, and then there were the Indian massacres. But I think it was like 95% of their population disappeared in a generation because of diseases like smallpox or the plague or whatever, because they had no resistance to them at all. And then slavery. So we took their land, and we knew we were taking their land. We kind of felt bad at it, but there are a lot of poor people in Europe that, and those immigrants were exploited too when they came over. They were just used as cheap labor. But like my family, we came over, we built Zen City. These were poor people. They had just about enough money to maybe buy some axes. I don't know. I guess they had saws, whatever rudimentary tools, maybe a flintlock rifle, and they built their own city. I don't know if they interacted with any Indians. When I say interact, I mean slaughter them. But they were out in the wilderness, and they were poor, and they made their own city. So I mean, these were deadbeat people. They made their own city. These were industrious Germanic people. I don't even know. They insisted that they were Germans, and I guess people do from that region. They insisted that they're Germans, but if you go to that region now, it's now part of France, and they speak French, and so it's like one group came in and took over from the other group. It was a disputed area, and the Germans lived there for a while, and then the French have it now, so it's like disputed. I went back, and it's like I'm not going to go back and demand the vineyard back or anything like that. It's like I'm gone, So the Jews going back after 2,000 years, unless you're like really into the Bible and think that that's really true, it's like that was kind of rude. But I mean, if you look at history, the people that control the land, like I'll use France for example. Oh dear. Okay, okay. First, it was the Celts. The Celts. Gaul was a big like Gaelic. Gaul. France was a big Ireland, and then Rome. It was a Roman province. They still called it Gaul. The Italians, and then the name France came from my tribe. You know, the Swabi, but the Franks and the Swabi and the not the Ferengi. What were they called? The Swabi and there was some other tribe. The Romaneschi or um, I'm trying to remember the Cherushki. Cherushki, that was it. Like with her, with Armanicus, the Cherushki, the Franks, and oh, just slip the Swabi. The Swabi. It's in my mind. It's the Swabi, the Cherushki, and the Franks. So that's my people. But Franks, France. So the French are part German too. It's complicated. There's no pure race. No such thing as a pure race. And I thank God that I'm not, because God only knows what I, what kind of a monster I'd be. I don't want to be a monster. But I mean, I think that goes to the head. Master race, chosen people. People take that for, and also, I think a lot of what happened with the Jews is they came right out of those concentration camps, and they were so traumatized by just barely surviving that they figured. I think Golda Meir even said, after the Holocaust, we're justified in anything we do. We're barely hanging on here. Everybody wants to kill us, so why don't we just kill them first? Which is kind of unfair because the Palestinians or the Arabs or wherever was on that land in the Levant, they'd been there for 2,000 years, and there were Christians there, and there were Muslims there, and they did live relatively peaceful. If you look at the Naburi Karta, this is what they say. I'm just saying what they say. They say that what was the guy, Rabbi Jacob, not Rabinowitz, Shapiro, Rabbi Jacob Shapiro, that Judaism is a religion. It's not a race. It's not a nationality. And if you read the Torah correctly, Zionism was a secular thing. It was a secular idea. And ironically enough, it was an idea that the Protestants got from their unique interpretation of Revelations. That in order for God to come back, Israel had to be had to be reincarnated, according to the Old Testament. And again, those weird prophecies that, because I guess the Jews were always getting kicked out and coming back. That the Messiah, the last time they get kicked out, God commanded them not to have a nation until the Messiah returned, and according to them, that was not Jesus. And so, because it wasn't, they're forbidden to have a state. But I mean, that's this thing about the Bible. You can it's like astrology. You can make it say anything you want. It's been rewritten so many times from Aramaic to Greek. What can it mean? But you kick a dog, you make it mean. And after all that, think, who are we going to play nice with? Why are we obligated to play nice? Is anybody nice with us? We're going to take this little bit of land, and you were there. Too bad. So sad. It's our land now. That's what people do. It's like we took land from the Indians. Now, I'm not saying I believe this, because I think it's messed up down there. It'd be nice if they could partition it. But I you know what? Maybe we're just going to have to wait for Jesus to return, or the space aliens to come out of their spaceship. Whatever reality actually exists. God is a comedian playing to an audience too afraid to laugh. And maybe God is some extraterrestrial. I don't know. Or maybe this is some computer simulation. Don't know. Don't care. Not to be disrespectful if there's a God up there and this offends you. Come on. You're bigger than that. Anyways, what I'm saying is Israel's are sort of like my guy. He was this pugnacious, temperamental guy who's very bright, who had a rough upbringing, had a bad temper, and when he got in a fight, he was ruthless. He'd go after people's families. He wouldn't show a lot of mercy, and once somebody was down, he would kick them. And my job, that sounds terrible, but the think that someone like that would have a good side. Everybody had a good side. I mean, maybe Hitler had a good side. He liked dogs. He was a vegetarian. I don't want to say anything nice about Hitler. I'm sorry. Forget that. Charles Manson. I mean, he hung out with the Beach Boys. I love Beach Boy music. Alexa, play Fun, Fun, Fun.
Here's Fun, Fun, Fun by the Beach Boys on Amazon Music.
Who doesn't love the Beach Boys? Alexa, stop. All right, that's enough of that. Alexa, play Run, Run, Rudolph.
Here's Run, Run, Rudolph by Kelly Clarkson.
No. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. Please stop. I like her voice, but Alexa, play Chuck Berry's Run, Rudolph.
Run, Rudolph, Run by Chuck Berry on Amazon Music.
See, this is his song. None of this weight appropriation shit. Alexa, stop. They'll sue me. I don't want to copyright old Chuck, but he's a favorite. I love Chuck Berry. Okay, he was the mastermind. He was the best. He was the absolute shit. That to say he was in an American slang, that means he was the absolute best. People get confused and think I'm being insulting. When you say something it is shit, it's bad. If you say it's the shit, it's good. Figure our slang. But Chuck Berry was just the best. Let's leave the nasty slang out of this. So, anyways, that's my analogy. I had a friend like that once. When he lost his temper, he'd lose it, and he'd go too far. And not only did you have to worry about him hurting people, and sometimes it wasn't so much that you were worried about the person he was hurting, more than you were just worried that he was going to make you look bad. And even worse than that was because you felt an affinity to this guy. He'd done you good. He had his moments when he could be a real super productive member of society. He was admirable. He was intelligent. He was a good businessman. But he just couldn't control his temper. And you had to worry about him doing damage to the assholes that he went after. Palestinians aren't assholes, but the Hamas is. I mean, they deserve to die. But that's not what's going on there. It's not. It's like, should have they bombed Dresden and Leipzig? Those places had no military value. The Nazis were bad, but not everybody in Germany was guilty. Not everybody was and that's the thing in international law. Collective punishment is a war crime, and we're trying to become more civilized. They're committing war crimes by going after all the Palestinian people, and you can't tell me that they're not, that they're actually trying to spare people. They killed 20,000 people. So it's like my friend, it's like my Goodfellas friend. He was charming, he was intelligent, he was nice to me. Oh, and his family invited us over for dinner, and they were the nicest, kindest people. I really liked them. They were good people. I liked them. I felt good that I knew somebody that was because I was surrounded by scum. But this guy had a respectable family. He just had a little, I think he'd done a little bit too much cocaine in the 80s, and he was hyped up, and he had a tough life. But he's turning his life around. But when he lost his temper, you had to worry about his victims, whether they deserved it or not. He'd go too far. And you don't kick a man when he's down. You have to worry about him going after the victim's family, totally innocent people that really hadn't done anything wrong. They just had a bad egg in the family. Then you had to worry about it splashing on you because you knew him, that he was going to give you a bad reputation. And most of all, I'll be honest, I was worried about the consequences to him, that he would get himself killed by going too far around the wrong people, because he was fearless. He had no fear. He'd take on everybody, take on the whole world, China, Russia, Turkey. He could handle himself, but you're not Superman. You can't take on the whole world, and he was like that. So and the thing you had to worry about, really, not only the innocent people, not only him going not kicking the bad guy down, when he's down. If you're supposedly the good guy or decent moral person functioning on humanistic or Christian principles, even even evil people, even wicked people, you have to show some sort of restraint to, and justice requires you to deal with them with a civilized criteria. But that's me. That was like low. I didn't want to see innocent people hurt, and I'm just going to say it. My major priority was this guy was his own worst enemy. He was going to get himself killed or put in jail, and the major thing was to protect him from himself. And I think that's kind of, if America is an ally to Israel and we feel that we have a Christian duty to protect Israel, right now maybe we should be protecting Israel from itself, because it's not being run by a good person. He seems like he wanted this to happen. He kind of snuck money to Hamas because I guess the Fatah, as corrupt as they might be, they wanted to make a deal. They wanted to stop fighting. All right, you get some land, we get some land, we get some aid, we'll deal with you. Didn't want that. Didn't want that. Wanted an excuse to just wipe these people out. And how do you do that? You fund the craziest psychopaths around. Kind of like your polar opposite. Your flip side. You're an evil psychopath, so you find some other evil psychopaths on the other side. Which I'm not going to say that Hamas are freedom fighters or anything like that, because I used to know people in the IRA, and I don't think that the IRA were definitely, they did some bad things, but when you consider the history of Ireland, you can see why they felt that was the only way they had to fight back. But Hamas, please don't make me say anything nice about them, because I don't like them. I don't like them. I don't like the fact that they're religious fanatics. I don't like the fact that they want to kill gays or put women in burqas, or that they don't believe in democracy or human rights, and that they I don't really know what happened on that day, that October 7th day. Were babies beheaded and thrown in ovens? Were women raped? I'm sure that there was some of that, but I've also heard rumors, and I'm not saying this is true, but I've heard rumors that a lot of those burned out cars and a lot of those unrecognizable bodies of the 1,200 victims were when the IDF came in firefights, in tanks and in Apache helicopters, and they just shot into those kibbutzes, because I don't know what happened. The Israelis used to have a really great army, but they haven't been in a full-on fight since 1973. I mean, they went up into Lebanon in the early 80s, but other than like sweeping through Gaza or the West Bank, they haven't had a full-on fight with anybody for years. And the rumor I heard, or the skinny that I got, the dirt I got, was a lot of these IDF soldiers are conscripts, and they're just scared kids. They're not really trained or hardened like the fighters were back in the 6-Day War in '73 or even in '82. And to expect them to go in and tough it out with Hamas, even though they're under-equipped and their weapons are primitive, they built those tunnels. It's a tough thing to take them on. Does it bother me that they're killing Hamas? I'll be completely honest with you. I feel zero sympathy for Hamas. But it's more complicated than that. If you look at what's close, Netanyahu kind of set them up. He realized that they were deranged, and he wanted an excuse to go in there and slaughter all those people. Netanyahu is not a nice guy, but Israel's our ally. It's being run by a real putz. It's like, you got maybe somebody that's got a little ding-dong, a little demon in his head, or a little personality quirk. When they drink a little bit too much, or they lose their temper, they're not themselves, and you got to. I think one priority is civilians shouldn't be killed. I realize that a lot of Israelis died on that day, and that was terrible. And so, I mean, but how many people have to die? If they killed everyone in Hamas, which they won't do, that would be fine with me. What really, really bothers me, and it bothers me, was when they went into the kibbutzes and they kidnapped and they did all those terrible things. Although I heard the IDF, there was a lot of collateral damage. That's what I heard. Now, whether I don't want to repeat anything that's misinformation. If I'm wrong and anybody sees this, please correct me. But I've heard that from many, many sources about that a lot of those deaths on the Israeli side were collateral damage when the helicopters and the tanks came in. Am I saying that's a hard fact? What do I know? I'm just saying I keep hearing that. I keep hearing that. But no matter what happened, it's bad when they weren't armed. They weren't armed. And a lot of those girls that were guarding, I don't know. I've heard different stories about that too. I've heard that, the female combat soldiers, I've heard some people say, they're tough. They can do their jobs. Other people says, yeah, you don't want women in combat. It'll ruin their nails. They'll get hysterical. But I don't know if that's true. I don't think it's fair. Another thing, maybe Netanyahu just didn't have them properly staffed or whatever. See, they beat us. You just beat a bunch of girls. Maybe they did that on purpose. But I don't know. They look like they know what they're doing. Every time I see those female soldiers, they got their M16s and they look fit and trained and everything, and they're in their bikinis. I heard they did that on purpose to get sympathy for Israel. These half-naked pictures of these attractive young teenage girls. I'm okay. But, very complicated situation. Long story short, I don't think Hamas are heroes. I don't think anybody that could do things like that is heroes. Even going back to the time when I was very sympathetic to the Irish Republican Army, and I think I still am, I would not call them terrorists, but they obviously did some pretty bad things, and maybe I shouldn't have had so much to do with them. But they made peace, which is kind of why I can come out and say that. They made peace. Sinn Féin's in government in the north, and Sinn Féin's I think it's the largest political party in Ireland, and Ireland's doing well. So that was the Civil War. Bad things happen in war. I don't think you can make a moral equivalency between Sinn Féin and Hamas. I really don't. I don't want to say anything good about Hamas. I just don't. I don't want to think what they do is in any way to be lauded. Do I understand? It's like, do I understand why Israel is doing bad things? Yeah, they were traumatized. Do I understand why the Palestinians are doing these horrible things? They were traumatized. We can't make excuses though. It's got to stop sometime. What I am going to say is, it's 20,000 civilians bombing the hospitals. The people don't even have a place to shit. They got no food. They got no running water, and 99% of them didn't do anything to anybody. Maybe you don't like their religious beliefs or whatever. It's they elected Hamas. Well, the Germans got confused and they didn't put Hitler in power, but he was getting, what was he getting, 30-40% of the vote? Who knows, because those elections were rigged or whatever. But the Germans loved Hitler at first before he started all that stuff. He put them all back to work. They all had their little vote, they had jobs when everything, because Germany was really messed up. People make mistakes. The Roman Empire was a very brutal thing. Are you going to take that on modern-day Italians? Martin Scorsese's an American, but like Fellini, this beautiful culture, Leonardo da Vinci, you're going to condemn everybody because the Romans did some nasty stuff? It was the Romans that kicked the Jews out of Israel. Are you going to hold a grudge for 2,000 years? I guess that was the clever thing. Nobody, I guess, blames them. That was just Romans. That's how they kept power. If you got out of hand with the Romans, they gave you a chance, but if you misbehaved, they showed you no mercy. That's how they kept things going for 1,000 years. They showed you no mercy. Once they conquered you, they give you a chance to become part of the empire and get co-equal rights or whatever as a citizen. They wouldn't. That was why it kept going so long. That's why Hitler only lasted 12 years. He'd come in and he'd conquer people and he'd treat them like absolute shit. He'd starve them. He'd beat them. He was a monster. The Romans, once they conquered you and they finished slaughtering you, and they, like when they went into Gaul, they exterminated 1/3 of the population of Gaul. They enslaved 1/3 of the population. 1/3 of the population. They said, now if you behave, we'll treat you good. But the Romans. Oh my God, the Romans did not fool around, right? The Romans did not fool around. They were ruthless. But the only difference with them is once they conquered you and you paid your taxes and you behaved yourself, you could become part of the empire. They would assimilate you. Rome was a fascinating place. Oh, but it was cruel. It was cruel. So after all this cruelty, you can't expect Israelis, I guess, to be saints. I'd like to say the Jews, but I was listening to this rabbi Jacob Shapiro, and he made a lot of sense. He says Zionism. I mean, I guess Zionism was originally an idea that the Protestants had by their misinterpretation or their weird interpretation of Revelations, that they had to recreate the state of Israel, and then they gave this idea to this guy Ted Herschel, or I'm trying to remember his name, Warren Herzog. I used to Alexa, who invented Zionism?
Here's something I found on World Atlas. In 1896, Theodor Herzl conceived of and founded the Zionist movement in Basel, Switzerland.
Okay, there were others, but Theodor Herzl, that was the name I'm trying to think. He wasn't religious. I think he might have been an atheist, and a lot of them were socialists. Initially, the religious Jews were aghast. They said, "Look, you read the Torah; it's pretty clear. We are not to return to Israel till the Messiah comes, and He'll do it for us. Anything else is a heresy." So, according to them, this is all wrong. But after the Holocaust, they said, "You know what? Yeah, let's stick to the spirit, not the letter. All right, we'll find some other way to reinterpret all this, because you can. There's just so much in there that's contradictory. You can make it say anything you want. But after all that, they think, well, look, the Nazis took all that land. The Americans took the land from the Indians. This used to be ours a long time ago. I'll never get my vineyards in Alsace back, but I don't deserve them. Poor Palestinians who hadn't really done anything to anybody. And let's try to remember when the Christians had their kingdom in the Holy Land, when they went down there were a lot of Jews that were living with the Muslims. For some reason, they just felt it was very necessary to slaughter every Jew that they could find because they weren't Christians. So that was pretty messed up. And then when the Inquisition, they kicked all the Jews out of Spain. So they've been kicked around for many years. Okay, all right, that doesn't justify what they're doing to the Palestinians, because the Palestinians weren't the ones that did all these rotten things to them. They're just living on the land, minding their own business, like the Canaanites or the Philistines. There was always somebody else there, and I don't think the Jews actually went to Egypt, but Babylon, and they were always being conquered by the Greeks or the Egyptians or the Babylonians. They were independent for a very, very short period of time.
This is a reminder. My own farts
Alexa,
smell
stop. I'm. That's embarrassing. I just do that to amuse myself. Alexa, fart. Yeah, all right.
That was a deep one.
Yeah.
Try asking me for an engine rumbler fart.
Oh, now we got a real
or say
problem.
Random.
So, anyways, now that I've solved the world's problems, that's all I had to say.
That was a wet and squeaky one. Try asking me for a gooey fart. Or say random. Try asking me for a gooey fart. Or say random.
Okay, now I think she's going to be quiet. Sometimes when you tell her to shut up, she just keeps farting. So it's not her fault. It's my fault. I mistreat my Alexa and make her do perverted things like fart. So, but I don't do anything else. That's the weirdest thing I do with Alexa is make her fart. So that's just it. But I just felt I had the need to because I made this science fiction story about the whole planet's crazy. That's going to be the whole purpose of these two books. He lands on Gaza and he realizes that it's not just a place to gamble and have a good time or hang out on the beach in Hawaii or in the Riviera. It's a planet of war and strife and these adversarial tribes of monkeys that are just constantly slaughtering each other. And it's not just Gaza, it's the whole fucking planet that's messed up. It's not just these two tribes that are going. Alexa, play Two Tribes by Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Here's Two Tribes by Frankie Goes to Hollywood on Amazon Music.
This is a good song. I don't know how much I can get away with. They might just ban this whole video because I'm playing music. Hopefully, I haven't said anything offensive. I haven't said anything nice about Hitler. I'm so Alexa, stop. I'm so from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What does that mean? Is that advocating genocide against the Jews, or is that just telling them to go back to Long Island, or is that just like saying, well, from the river to the sea, we want to be in charge now? All right, not necessarily we want to exterminate you. We just want our land back, and maybe you can find someplace else to live, or you can live on the land, but you can't be in charge. I'm not sure that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's necessarily advocating genocide. But it's kind of scary. I can just see how, if you were a Jew, that would be just kind of scary. It's like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave now. Because, that's what Hitler did. I'm sorry, you have to leave now. And then when they made it impossible for them to leave and nobody else wanted them, then they got. So you can understand why they're paranoid about this, can't you? I mean, you got to understand that. But that's the main thing. I had a friend one time. He had some good qualities. He had some bad qualities. He was a psychopath. He could be very kind. But when he lost his temper, he was his own worst enemy. And when somebody's their own worst enemy, if you're their friend, because they're going to make you look bad too, you gotta figure out some way to restrain them before they do something that they'll regret later, or that you'll feel guilty about for not intervening and like saving them from themselves. But the story of this guy, he's kind of a sort of a sociopathic huckster. That's the thing. He's not the least bit worried about saving Earth people from themselves. It's like, you can't do anything about it. You can't really. We're not supposed to be interfering anyways, and they're just this way. So why not make a buck off of it? Give tours. I mean, send people down. I mean, instead of playing computer games or sending people to the holodeck, they can be in real battles with real life consequences like death. And some people, I guess, are into that. I mean, it's like people going if you're going to climb a mountain or to the North Pole or to jump out of a plane or those cage matches, boxing. There are a lot of extreme sports where you're risking your life. There are real life consequences jumping out of a plane, or well, look at Evil Knievel. It's not a game. You could really hurt yourself. You could give yourself brain damage and die from playing football. That's gladiatorial. And I'm thinking maybe the galaxy had just gotten so civilized. It's kind of like a combination between Singapore and Switzerland. Very nice, a little bit too sanitary though, a little bit too antiseptic. Not a lot going on. Not a lot of violence. How much violence is there in Switzerland? How much violence is there in some place like Singapore where they hang you or vaporize? I don't know. Maybe they lobotomize people in outer space. It's just boring. So people, all the alpha aliens or whatever, sometimes they need some place to vent. Sometimes they just need some place to go and be barbarians again. It's like we don't need to hunt anymore. We do and we don't. We don't need to hunt for food, but we still have that predatory instinct in us. And if you don't have the contact sports or the hunting or whatever, I'd hate to think that war is inevitable, that people have to engage in war. That would be a horrible thing. But that's the story. In the end, it's like this. There's no saving humanity from itself. Humanity's got to save itself. I mean, is there a God that's going to come down and pull it and save us? If the Christians have it right, God isn't going to save us. He's going to be the one committing genocide. He's going to wipe most of us out, and then like a few people that convert to, whatever the true blue Christianity is, they'll get to go to heaven. I'm not going to be one of those people. I just know it. Not with the life I've led and the fact that I can't give up ice cream or caffeine. Although I seem to have managed to give up alcohol. Lustful thoughts, lustful deeds. I haven't had any lustful deeds in 30 years. It's pathetic. But You're not supposed to even think about it. And I'd be dishonest if I said my thoughts are pure. And sometimes I get mad not about that, but about the hatred that exists, I guess, in all of our hearts. When I watch the news, it's just like it's just so easy to get mad at everybody in the world for the whatever. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think so. I'm Trump supporters or the Zionists or Hamas, whoever it is that you feel like you absolutely despise and want to just wipe out. But I'll tell you one thing. I mean, if they did start wiping Jews out, I'd have to hide them. I mean, that's what my family did during the war. I'd have to help them. But they've got the upper hand now. They're not the underdog. They're like kind of like the Germans were. The Germans felt they were the underdog because they lost World War I and they wanted revenge. And once they got the upper hand, no mercy. That's not a merciful bunch, the Germans. They seem to be well behaved now, but God only knows if NATO collapses and they decide that they're going to rearm. God only knows what kind of disaster the world's going to befall. Because the Germans are hardworking people and they're also very industrious. And look what they're capable of. They basically brought down the Roman Empire. Yeah, they didn't show a lot of mercy to anyone during World War II. Now they seem to be okay. Yeah, Israel's the top dog now. It's prosperous. Um, the Palestinians are the underdog, and basically what you're seeing every day is not an even battle. It's a very one. It's like my friend, getting in a bar fight, and maybe the asshole started it, but he's the asshole's down and he's being kicked in the face, and my friend's punching his girlfriend in the face, and maybe his uncle just says, "Well, what's going on here?" He wants to kill the whole freaking family. Was he a bad guy? I mean, if you met some people, if you hadn't known him, you'd say that he was probably the worst. But if you actually knew him, charming, intelligent, I kind of felt privileged. He was one of those people. I knew some artists, some musicians. One of those people in my life, I actually felt, in a way, in a very ironic way, I felt privileged to know him. He was smart. He was clever. He wasn't even clever. He was brilliant. And I remember thinking, if he could just learn to control his temper and put a little love in his heart, he could be really successful. But like I said, he was his own worst enemy. He would work harder against himself, and it was just because he was so full of fury and violence, and there was just no way to calm him down. So I guess what I got to say is, if you're an American, we got to figure out a way to calm Israel down before before this bar fight just spreads to the whole world, because they're just crazed and out of control right now. It's making us look bad. Like, we need that again. Why we're supplying weapons, I don't know. I think maybe if we just said, you know what, you're not getting any more until you behave yourself and stop killing women and children. And maybe the people are starving in Gaza. That's not good. That's not Christian. I mean, not that I'm a good Christian, but I think that's what's going on in my mind. It's not like Marxism or leftism going on in my mind. It's like you show people mercy. It's like Jesus, let he among you who has not sinned, let him cast the first stone. Do I condemn you? You show forgiveness and you show mercy. That's the New Testament. And these people are down. They're helpless. Are they blameless? They're just little kids. They're old people. I would say maybe not. I don't know, but I mean, collective punishment is a war crime, and these most of the people being killed are unarmed. They're just civilians. Like, you can say, oh well, the Germans deserved it. The people in Leipzig and Dresden, they're just civilians. It was not a military target. It didn't end the war 1 second sooner. It was collective punishment, and I'd like to think that we could become above this, because this is barbaric. It's not necessary. I don't think it's necessary. It's like, well, the way we'll kill Hamas is we'll just kill them all. We don't know which ones are the good Arabs or which ones are the bad Arabs, so we'll just kill them all. No, we can't allow that because first of all, the God I believe in would not sanction that. I mean, maybe there's some justifications for it in the Old Testament, but isn't the New Testament full of forgiveness and mercy for your enemies and treat people the way you want to be treated? If an army came in here and conquered the army and the civilians, I would like to think that they would show us some mercy. Um, I think that's the opinion I want to give. I've described the science fiction story that was kind of about this. The protagonist or the anti-hero in it is just some hapless guy that he's not blameless, but he's one of these employees. If you've ever employed people that just does the absolute minimum. He's a grouser. Everything's and he's always finding someone else to blame for his own inadequacy. It's always somebody else's fault. And of course, the boss should have given him a vacation. Didn't feel he was entitled to it because he never really worked enough for it. But by law, he was required. He filed a complaint, and that brought galactic internal revenue down on him. In revenge, he sends him to Gaza. He feels, oh my God, I'm just. But his idea is like the Prime Directive in Star Trek. I think that'll be the moral of the story is Earth people are going to have to find their own solution to this because the aliens, their attitude is maybe like God. It's like we're not going to interfere. They're going to have to settle their own affairs. And this one guy is like, yeah, but until they settle their own affairs, I could make a lot of money sending tours down to watch them slaughter each other. That's my story, This guy trying to make a buck off of our misery and cruelty and violence. I can make some money here giving tours. Stalingrad. Yeah, I'm in the Ukraine. Look at their. Will they blow up the nuclear power plant? Will they use nuclear weapons? Wouldn't you like to be there when well, why would you want to be there when the bomb goes off? But it's like, yeah, that's death defying, like jumping out of a plane. Will the parachute open? Won't it? Or racing a car? That's dangerous. People like mostly men, but in this day and age, you can't be sexist like that. I'm sure there are women that like to do stupid, fucked up, dangerous, aggressive things too. Although you'd like to think at least one of the two sexes. Oh, I got now. There aren't two sexes. There are like what 1,032,000. I don't know. Heinz 57 flavors or Baskin Robbins 32 flavors of ice cream, gender fluid, whatever. But I'm very I was always very sexist. I thought women had certain qualities that men didn't have, like women didn't start wars. Women were nurturing. Sometimes they might be a little bit too kind or whatever, but they were kind of God created them to kind of like say, wipe your feet, stop beating your son, don't argue with the neighbor, put the cigarette out at the table. Have you been to the doctor? Let me take your temperature. Change your underwear. You never take me anywhere. kind of keep an eye on us, But I guess there's some women that like to start wars and do sadistic things. There must be some. I mean, if I don't say that, then I'm being sexist, right? But men tend to be. Women are just as intelligent as men. I'm just watching something. Men are more all over the place. There are more men that are geniuses, and there are more men that are idiots, and women are kind of bunched up in the middle. They're not so extreme. That's why it averages out. But there are some men that are really, really fucking stupid, and then there are some men because of testosterone or something. I don't know. Is it sexist to say that? The science shows that a lot of them are inspired because they have that aggressive nature, and that's why you have Leonardo da Vinci and Martin Scorsese and Albert Einstein. These people that are just driven. Are they smarter than women? No, it's just women have different priorities. They like to talk. They like to think their feelings out. They can invent things too, but men have this. The same thing. It was Camille Paglia said this. The same thing that makes a man invent the internet or a rocket to the moon is the same sort of aggressive drive that creates serial killers and mass murderers. It's like it's a beast. It's like a fire or a gun. It can be used to protect you, or it can be used in Czechoslovakia to kill 12 people in a university. So it's up to you. Are you going to do good? You're going to do evil? Are we going to watch Israel destroy itself and kill innocent people? Are we worried about? If you're not worried about the innocent people, and I am actually, if you're for the people of Israel and you're for the Jewish people, you got to do something to restrain them because right now it's Friday night. They're drunk out of their mind. Someone grabbed their girlfriend's boobs, and they're just going berserk and tearing the whole bar apart. And if you're a good friend, you got to collar them and say, "Calm down. It's not worth it. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Yeah, the guy's an asshole. He deserves it, but you don't have to beat up his whole family, and you don't have to beat up his girlfriend. Just never hate your enemies. It affects your judgment. And right now, they're out of control. And if we are a good friend to them, we gotta restrain them. We really do. I mean, you might not see it that way, but they're not defending themselves. This is not defense. Self-defense isn't getting in a fight with someone who started it, kicking them. They're down. They're holding their belly. They're completely helpless, and you're still wailing on them, and you're wailing on them, and you're wailing on them, and you're wailing on them, and their kids crying and screaming and daddy, daddy, daddy. And not only you kicking the guy, you go over and kick his kid in the chops too. That's not Christian. I'm just going to say it. That's not the way. That's not what I learned at Sunday school. So I think I've said enough.